Good morning. This is your host, Julie Crescenti Heck, with Order, and we have a great webinar planned for you today. We'll get started in just a couple minutes. Okay, we have a action-packed webinar for you today, and so we want to make sure that we get started and start some introductions. And I think without further ado, let's start. So we have the name of the webinar today, as you can see, is Getting Your People, Processes, and Technologies Ready for the CMMC certification. We have Rick Lemieux from ITSM will be going first, and really is our primary organizer and manager, and he will be kicking it off. And then we have, maybe Rick, can you advance one slide for me of the presenters? And then we have Steve Torino, and Steve's with CyberSaint Security, and he will be presenting and also giving you a demo. And then we have from Order, Mike Raymond and Craig Hypes, and we will be talking about the Order solution and making sure that you also see a demonstration from Craig. So a couple housekeeping things to keep in mind. This is being recorded, so you will get a copy of the recording. And then also, we really encourage the questions. We're going to take those at the end so that we just get through a lot of this material, but please don't hesitate to use the chat feature and let us know what your questions are, and then we'll take those at the very end. So without further ado, let me introduce Rick.
Thanks, Julie, and thank you all for attending today's webinar, How to Get Your People, Process, and Technologies Ready for a CMMC certification. This is a topic that is near and dear to me since I've been involved in the cyberspace for quite a few years now, but more importantly, been really focused around the work that the National Institute of Standards and Technologies has been doing in this space, especially around the cybersecurity framework, and now NIST 800-171 and the work that they're doing with the Department of Defense, and more importantly, the Defense Industrial Base. Just quickly to go over the agenda for today, I'm going to give you a quick introduction to the why and what of CMMC. I'm sure most of you have attended webinars on the CMMC topic before, so you've heard about the problem quite a few times. But I don't think many organizations have focused in on talking about the solution. And that's what this webinar today is, very prescriptive. We're going to talk about how to get ready and the programs that are available to help you get ready. I'm going to talk about a new program that we're introducing today called the NCSP 800-171 Fast Track Program. I'll follow that up with talking about the training programs associated with Fast Track, along with the platforms that both CyberSaint and Order will be demoing later on in the presentation. And then I'll talk about a special offer that is available to all attendees today, and then we'll open up the floor to questions. So let me quickly give you a quick introduction to CMMC and why did it exist and what exactly is it? Well, CMMC was built upon existing regulations or DFAR regulations that is basically focused in on helping the defense industrial base become cyber secure. The government was, the Department of Defense and the government in general is very much worried about intellectual property being stolen or systems being compromised, that they basically worked directly with Carnegie Mellon and Johns Hopkins to develop a certification that an organization could align with or get certified on to prove that they actually are protecting the intellectual property that belongs to the U.S. government and more importantly, the Department of Defense. CMMC itself combines various standards from NIST and other entities like ISO. And basically, it's designed to put in place the controls and management systems that will allow you to manage your cybersecurity risk, all right, and protect that intellectual property. So originally, originally the government had put out the DFARS regulation and made it, basically, took your word that you had put in place the capabilities. That really didn't work out too well. So in turn, they worked with Hopkins and Carnegie Mellon to create CMMC so that they would have a way to assess the DAB to ensure that they actually have these capabilities in place and that that intellectual property is being protected. I'm sure all of you are familiar with the fact that CMMC can be very difficult, or at least thinking about it can be very difficult. You need to figure out, where do I start? Is there an easy way to get this done? What's the cost going to look like? Can I afford it? And then I guess last but not least, but probably at the top of the list is that, can I invest now for CMMC compliance and get long-term benefits from that? How do I turn this into a system that not only allows me to become CMMC certified, but also provides me the capability to do continual assessments and continual certification as the government's going to do as part of the CMMC accreditation body. What I'd like to do now is introduce you to a program that we put together in partnership with the CMMC Center of Excellence, or otherwise known as the COE. Basically, the COE was put together probably about 5 or 6 months ago by an organization, a nonprofit in Washington, D.C. And their focus was to basically help the DIB get ready for CMMC certification. Most of you might be familiar with the CMMC AB, or the accreditation body. That's the organization that the Department of Defense has stood up to basically perform the assessments and provide the certifications. While that's a great organization and it does a great job of representing the interests of the Department of Defense, there really wasn't an organization out there that represented the interests of the defense industrial base. So the COE was formed to perform that particular, or to deliver that particular outcome. And so they're focused in on, creating a trusted partner for the DAB, for the coordination, communication, and collaboration in support of getting the DAB ready for their CMMC certification. We partnered with the COE very early in their life cycle, and we were focused in on working with them to create, an affordable turnkey solution that would include training and technologies that would enable the DIB to get their people, process, and technologies ready for CMMC certification, because that's what it's all about at the end of the day. Your people are a very important piece of the cybersecurity risk management puzzle. A lot of the breaches originate from people clicking on emails or going onto websites that they don't belong on, and so on and so forth. And that just kind of activates the snowball in terms of breaches and so on and so forth. Your processes, well, that work's pretty much already been done by NIST. They did all the heavy lifting in that area, creating NIST 800-171, which provides you all of the informative references that you need to adopt and adapt within your organization. And then the technology piece, clearly, you have to worry about your overall technology, your servers, your networks, your PCs, and so on and so forth. But in this particular instance, we're talking about technology that will allow you to fully automate any or all aspects of your cybersecurity risk management program. And the reason the technologies are important is because the problem is so complex that you can no longer manage your cybersecurity risk on spreadsheets or any other way that you've been doing it in the past. You really need to have a system that is doing continual assessments, not only of your security controls, but also of all of your assets as well. And then bringing all that data into one area where it can be analyzed and factored into your risk analysis. And not only do you have to pull all that information together through the assessment process, but that data needs to be analyzed and managed in terms of the organization taking action. So if there are changes in the threat and vulnerability landscape that will impact a control or an asset, you know, the people responsible for your cybersecurity risk management program need to be made aware of that so they can go and touch that control or touch that asset and remediate or mediate that risk. Excuse me. There were three organizations that came together to create this solution. The first is ITSM Solutions, which is my company. We have been focused for the last 20 years in building accredited certification training curriculum, primarily for digital transformation and digital businesses. We started out originally doing the ITIL framework for IT service management. Some of you on the call might be familiar with that. And then about 6 years ago, we added to our list the NIST cybersecurity framework and all of its informative references, which include 800-171. I'll talk more about our programs further into the presentation. Also involved in the program is CyberSaint Security, who has built an integrated risk management platform that, as it states here, empowers organizations to manage its cybersecurity risk management by enabling that continual assessment process, measurement, and communication to improve an organization's overall cybersecurity risk management. And then last but not least is Order. And Order has created a platform to allow organizations to passively discover and assess every connected device in their infrastructure, and then export that information downstream to systems like CyberSaint so it can be factored into the risk management equation, right? So once again, going back to what I stated earlier, it's really important to be able to have this underpinning set of management systems that is collecting this information and then compiling it and providing you a set of actionable items that you can act upon to mitigate risk within your infrastructure. What I want to do at this slide here is introduce the Fast Track program. And as I mentioned, the Fast Track program includes, there's three dimensions to it. There's the training dimension, there's the process dimension, which has been nicely contributed by NIST, and then there's the technology dimension. On the people side, we have basically created accredited NIST 800-171 certification training, and that we combine that with expert mentoring and tier 1 platform support, so that our goal with the training is to basically get those responsible for developing and implementing your risk management program ready to do so. These programs teach the how, not the what and the why, but the how. So it's very prescriptive, and it will allow you to achieve the outcome that you need to in order to get CMMC certified. The training is directly aligned with the NIST 800-171 informative references and the processes associated with that, as well as all of the underpinning management systems. So we're working, directly with NIST in the development of this program to ensure that you meet the requirements to once again get you CMMC certified. And then the technology piece is where CyberSaint and Order come in, to provide the automation, if you will, to automate the assessment of your security controls in your assets and factor that into your cybersecurity risk management equation, and then also provide the underpinning management systems to manage that on a real-time basis. A little bit about ITSM Solutions. We're basically a global consortium of industry thought leaders that have been working together to create accredited training solutions that teach enterprises the how. How to engineer, operationalize, and automate a risk management program based upon globally adopted best practices and standards, with a very specific focus around NIST and all the great work that they've done, ISO, the Center for Internet Security, and the last is the Committee of Sponsoring Organizations, otherwise known as COSO. Some of you may not be familiar with who they are, but they're made up of the American Institute of Certified Public Accountants, the International Auditing Community, and so on and so forth. And what they have done is they've created a guidance on how an organization needs to factor in cybersecurity risk management as part of their enterprise risk management strategy. So what they've done is they've provided guidance at the executive level to tell them that as you plan your enterprise risk, cybersecurity needs to be part of that particular program, and they provide guidance on how to do that. Our programs are accredited by APMG International. They're based in the UK, and they are been involved in accrediting cybersecurity or cybersecurity risk management training materials for several years now. In fact, they are the organization that the UK government relies on for all of their cybersecurity credentialing, not only in terms of curriculum, but also individuals. We're also certified by the National Cybersecurity Center, otherwise known as NCSC. Apologize for all the four-letter acronyms. They're part of GCHQ, and to make that simple, that's basically the UK's national security agency. And that was a process that was pretty extensive, and what they did was they validated that we delivered the outcome that our training was designed to deliver. And we're also recognized by the Department of Homeland Security as qualified NIST NICE training programs. We co-chair the Training and Education Working Group within the CMMC Center of Excellence. This is a new group that's been formed. And our job is to develop a body of knowledge of lessons learned within the DIB so that other DIBs can learn from that as well. No need to reinvent the wheel. And this organization will be kicked off here shortly. So keep an eye on what's going on with the COE so that you can become a member. And then we're also focused in on not only helping organizations adopt and adapt NIST 800-171, but we're very much focused on helping organizations create the workforce to support that. And that's another whole opportunity that we're developing right now called Cybersecurity Academy. Talk a little bit about the training. It's basically a two-part program. The first part is based on our NCSP practitioner bootcamp training program, which combines two programs together, our foundation program. And the foundation program provides an introduction into the world of digital transformation, as well as cybersecurity risk management and the NIST cybersecurity framework. So it gives you the basics of, basically of what cybersecurity risk management is, what the NIST framework is, and how does that all tie back into a digital transformation model. Then we also follow that up with the practitioner course. And the practitioner takes you into a deep dive on how to design, implement, operate, and continually improve a NIST cybersecurity program, once again, that enables organizations to provide the capabilities to get ready for CMMC certification. The second program that is part of this offering is the NCSP specialist training, or the 800-171 specialist training. And this program basically teaches the individual or the organization how to implement the NIST controls in the context of existing enterprise risk management or other types of management systems. So for instance, if you've already got an enterprise risk management program that's based on COSO or ISO 31000, the program doesn't ask you to replace those. It basically is designed to work with those, as well as existing service management programs, DevOps, and all the other things that are already heavily embedded in organizations today. So this program teaches you how to implement the controls in the context of your existing systems. I'm going to quickly introduce, the automation platforms, and then I'm going to hand the presentation over to Steve Torino, and he'll give you some additional information as well as a demo on that system, and that will be followed by Mike Raymond and Craig Hypes, who will do the same for the order platform. So the CyberSaint Integrated Risk Assessment and Management Platform basically allows an organization to continually assess their environment so that they understand what their cybersecurity risk management posture is at any point in time. The platform will automatically create, once it has all the data from the assessment, it will automatically create an SSP and a POEM, a plan of action and a set of milestones that will outline basically what risk do you have in your environment and what it's going to take in cost to mitigate those risks. So a lot of the capabilities that the DoD wants you to have in place, or the assessors want you to have in place, including proof of evidence, the CyberStrong platform from CyberSaint takes care of all of that. So I'll let Steve give you more details behind that during his presentation. On the order side, Um, one of the things that a lot of people, kind of forget about when they're building out their risk management programs are their assets. I mean, some organizations today have, asset management systems in place today and whatever else, but most of that information is not up to date and may not be accurate. Let alone, as you know, there are devices connecting to your network every day that you don't know about. So what Order does is Order basically will automatically go in and discover all of the devices, not just at the MAC and IP layer, but also, they'll do a deep packet inspection. So they'll be able to tell you what type of device it is, who makes it, where it's located, what the serial number is, how it's being utilized, what network it lives on. So, and it will do an assessment to tell you whether or not, that device or that asset could be a potential risk for your organization. And as I mentioned earlier, they collect a fair amount of rich data that can then be exported into systems like CyberSaint to factor that into your risk analysis and as part of your plan of action and set of milestones. With that, I will hand the presentation over to Steve Torino from CyberSaint.
All right, thanks, Rick. And thanks everybody for joining. I'll just run us through a few slides here, and then I'm going to jump actually into the platform so you get a little feel for what our technology does. So CyberSaint Security, we are recognized by Gartner actually as a cool vendor for 2020 in the integrated risk management space. So really what our mission is to enable cyber as a business function. And we do that through our technology platform, which is called CyberStrong. So CyberStrong is the software and CyberSaint is the company. In terms of the market we serve, we're pretty well positioned throughout a variety of different verticals. You can see some of the names of some of our existing customers over to the right here. We work with some of the largest companies in the world, as well as all the way down the gamut to smaller companies and startups. And really what we're focused on here is utilizing and really uniting people, process, platforms, and reports all in one system of record. We're heavily focused on automation. And when I speak about automation in terms of integrated risk management, there's a few different ways we can look at this, right? I mean, from a simple perspective, automation can just be workflow automation. It can be having all this, the relevant people that are involved in an assessment process involved in one system so that, you can track things like control completion, supporting evidence or artifacts that are needed to demonstrate adherence with the control, keeping up to date with due dates and notifications and things of that nature. But taking that a step further really is where CyberSaint is very distinguished in the market. So when we talk about our advanced automation, we're talking about things like integrating with third-party telemetry sources from without the tech stack, throughout the tech stack to try and automate some of the really manual processes that a lot of individuals are involved with in the assessment process, when that might not really be their job, right? So if you think about us uniting people, processes, and platforms, you may need configuration screenshots from certain systems. You may need copies of policies and procedures, or settings, or there might be tests that you're performing on controls. A lot of those things really do lend themselves very well to automation, because you may have additional systems that are already, processing some of that workload. So, take vulnerability management, for example. If you're leveraging a vulnerability scanner or asset identification, and network scanning with a system like Order, we can ingest the outputs from those systems, map those to controls, and then take some of that human element out of it so that you don't have to have as many people from throughout the organization taking part in the assessment process when that probably isn't their day job in the first place. Also, speaking of automation, another sort of important focus of work that we've been involved in heavily is automating the crosswalking process. So for many organizations, you may have requirements if you're in the defense industrial base for 800-171 for CMMC. But for a lot of companies, especially mid-size and larger that are operating in multiple jurisdictions, the complexities can get really intense from there. It can be multiple security frameworks and standards of practice. It can be other frameworks that are imposed by jurisdictions, or maybe you're accepting credit cards and it's PCI. A lot of these frameworks are saying the same or very similar things throughout the control environment, but just with slight nuances. And so we have the capability to allow you to assess once against a framework and then overlay the results of that onto additional frameworks and standards to see where you may stand, and also port over some of the scoring and evidence associated with that process as well. So though our customer list does span a number of different verticals, we are deeply rooted in the defense industrial base. We work with some of the large prime organizations, all the way down to some of the smaller, DIB contractors that are, through partnerships we have with like the MEP, for instance. There's really a need at all levels, I think, for some automation here, whether that's just the workflow automation of having that system of record where you can perform these type of assessments, automatically generate those reports for auditors throughout your readiness assessment process, as well as any regulatory audits, as well as getting into some of our more advanced automation with some of the larger organizations that we work with. And really, as we discuss the automation capabilities that CyberSaint provides, we're there to sort of support the maturity journey wherever our customers are at. And that really does align very well in a lot of ways with the CMMC initiative, which is understanding that as we move both practice and process maturity-wise from level 1 through level 5, that there are additional technologies that may need to be integrated with, there are additional practices and policies that will need to be ingrained in the organization. And even as we get to the higher levels, probably some cultural changes as well. And so we're really there to support the entire maturity journey for our customers throughout the CMMC lifecycle. So speaking of some of the larger customers that we work with like the primes, those organizations that are looking at level 4 and level 5, these typically are organizations that have multiple and pretty complex compliance requirements from a CMMC and DoD side of the business, but also just from throughout their sort of global footprints with different frameworks and standards that they need to be adherent with. So this is one area where some of our more advanced automation can shine. We can light up those controls, take some of the manual effort out of the assessment process by working with some of the technologies that would already be existing in their stack. Also through some of the capabilities around crosswalking, we can get really significant increases in productivity without having to just sort of repeat efforts over and over for different frameworks that have controls that are essentially saying the same thing. And then more at our mid-level customers, right? If we're thinking about it in CMMC steps here, we might be talking here more about the level 3. One of the things I think that's really key about leveraging a system of record like CyberSaint is that as you get above level, or to level 3 and above, right? Some of the process maturity requirements that CMMC is trying to instill in organizations require some kind of visibility and transparency around cyber posture to different areas and aspects of the organization. That's really difficult to do if you don't have a system where different stakeholders throughout the organization can kind of come in and see where we stand, understand where our gaps are, maybe understand where we need to start investing some additional resources to move forward. So just having a system like this in place can really be beneficial as you move from level 3 up to level 4 and level 5. And then on sort of the smaller end, maybe the level 1, level 2, smaller defense industrial based contractors, they can really benefit significantly from having a system like CyberSaint to just streamline the assessment process. Whether it's your first time going through an 800-171 assessment or whether you've been self-attesting for years, just having one central system where everyone can come in, score their controls, upload their artifacts, and then leverage the automated reporting that comes out of that can be extremely valuable. So with that, I'm just going to pull up an instance here, a demo environment of the CyberStrong platform, and give you just a quick high-level look around of what we have here for our customers. So this is the executive dashboard when you log in. And although today's webinar is focused largely on 800-171 and CMMC, we do have over 50 different frameworks and standards generally available in our platform just out of the box. Some of the glue that holds that all together, though, is through a series of crosswalking. Each of those can be viewed through the lens of the cybersecurity framework. So if I click on this cybersecurity framework tab here, this is showing a gap to goal perspective of all of the 86 assessments in this demo environment based on the 5 functional areas of NIST. We can also view it in a NIST category perspective as well. And this is really important for organizations that are balancing multiple compliance requirements. Just being able to compare apples to apples and have one sort of singular standardized language around risk and compliance to speak with different stakeholders throughout the organization is really valuable, and NIST does a great job at providing that. I'll jump into a DFARS 800-171 assessment here. So most of the workflow happens on the controls tab. So if we jump into controls, you can see there's 125 in this example here from 800-171, and they're all listed out there for you. We have the regulatory language directly from NIST. We have the supplemental guidance also associated with each control. So you don't need to sort of cross-reference between different spreadsheets or different PDF documents. It's all included right here in one system for you. We give you the ability to go throughout your readiness process here, score yourself at where you're at, and what's your target compliance for this control as well. So, understanding current state and future state of where you want to be. We have the capability to bring in multiple collaborators onto controls as well. We can assign that out to an individual and also assign multiple collaborators. So, maybe we have one person who's ultimately responsible for it, but that individual needs screenshots from somebody else. We can accommodate all those users into one control here. And then from a just sort of reminders and due dates perspective, that's all built in automatically. We can set due dates and then set reminders to send email notifications, at whatever organization defined number of days before, just to keep everybody on the same page. And then our supporting evidence tab here, this is really useful for organizing any of your artifacts that you may need to demonstrate to auditors that you have gone through and scored your controls appropriately. So we have the ability to upload an unlimited number of pieces of evidence here and link to where those locations live on, network attached storage, cloud storage, things like that. And then also this can be really useful for organizations that are sort of beginning the maturity process. Policies and procedures are a key part of both 800-171 and CMMC. And right out of the box, we have a set of policy-based templates here that are organized by NIST control family. They're Word documents. They can be downloaded, get you kind of 80% of the way there. Just need a little bit of customization to the individual organization, but it can be a huge time saver in terms of getting a whole program together. So those are available out of the box as well. And then after going through doing our scoring, adding our supporting evidence, we can also get into risk assessment here. This is another important piece of just having a risk-aware approach to cyber in general, so that we can be prioritizing sort of those assets and technologies that are meaningful to the business in terms of what risks are actually out there as asset values change and threats and vulnerabilities are constantly changing as well. So in this section here, we can assign a likelihood and an impact to control failure, and the system will automatically calculate an inherent risk score for that control based on a value of 1 through 5 from very low through very high risk likelihood, and same for risk impact. And then as we change those or update them over time, from inherent risk, we're going to minus out the score that was given on the scoring tab to arrive at a residual risk as well. So that's just an example of a control workflow here. As I mentioned, we do have a lot of capabilities around automating this process as well. So to the extent that there are technologies within your tech stack that may be able to do some of this without human intervention, we can certainly turn those things on. Things like vulnerability scanners, asset inventory, CMDB, identity and access management. Those are some sort of good examples of technologies that can help score some controls in an automated fashion. And then once that control workflow has been done, we also provide some ability to try to help you determine where you might want to remediate first. So this optimization section is some patented machine learning capabilities that CyberSaint has that's been trained on a historical data set around lowest cost, highest impact controls. So what the technology will do is take a look at your existing score within any given assessment and project that into buckets of low, medium, and high to try and identify those controls that you may want to work on bringing the score up on first in order to increase the overall assessment score here. So they're stack ranked for you as well. It can be really helpful in determining the prioritization and just having those resourcing conversations with other departments within the organization. And then the last thing I'll pull up here is the reporting section. So one of the requirements for 800-171, obviously being a POAM, and even for CMMC, the POAM requirement's going away, but I think it's still going to be an important part of the readiness process or the sort of self-assessment process as you get ready to have the C3PAO come in. One of the benefits to having a system of record like CyberSaint in place is that as you're going through updating those controls, adding supporting evidence into the system, these reports are automatically updating in real time. So I'm going to pull up an example here of a POAM for us. Gives us a few examples of what we'd like to display. Since this is for DFARS, I'm not going to include fully compliant controls. And then just with the click of a button, you can download that report and have it available for auditors or any other individuals who may need to see it. Starts out with your overall assessment score, gap to goal chart based on the crosswalk back to the NIST cybersecurity framework, gap to goal based on each of the control families within 800.171 here. Some definitions about the POEM itself, and then a great audit artifact that's going to print out every control within the assessment, displaying its scoring information, assignee and due date, any evidence that was uploaded to system, completion cost and financial impact, so some financial metrics that are optional to enter in our system, and then any notes that were left as well. And we'll print that out for every control. So just a really organized way to move off of spreadsheets, be able to accomplish this assessment process in a system of record where all your stakeholders can come in and collaborate together into one system. And then, moving forward to CMMC, we have CMMC at all levels also built into the platform here, organized again just at the capability level for CMMC. So really well organized here. If we pull up an example of capability 2, going from access control level 1 all the way through access control level 5, with scoring that has some logic built into it, understanding that in order to get to level 3, for example, you need to be compliant with all of the practices at levels 1 and 2. So if for some reason we were not, the system would automatically drop our score down to low. And we also accommodate that practice maturity as well here with the CMMC maturity model. So just a streamlined, organized way to get yourself ready both for 800.171 as well as for CMMC. So with that, I'm going to stop my screen share here and I'll pass it over to Mike at Order.
All right. So welcome everybody, and understand we have some international attendees too. So welcome. We appreciate you participating in our webinar today. So a little bit about Order, and I always like going back at a high level and say, what's the problem we're trying to solve? The government spent a lot of money protecting their own infrastructure and all the assets in the infrastructure. But they have found that the supply chain, all the companies, manufacturers, and service providers for the government are a weak link in that security chain, and that many of them have not been doing the right things to protect their own IT infrastructure with proper cybersecurity practices. So that's where the enforcement of CMMC comes in. And Order is a really good fit for compliance. There's a number of use cases, and I want to thank Rick for the lead in and for Steve, because what Rick and our 3 companies have put together is truly a solution that can save companies a lot of money and dramatically speed up the process to get companies to the point of being CMMC certified, so that they won't be impacted in some of the future bid solicitations that come out that'll require that. So in our role in this process, our solution really is going to be focused on seeing every device on the network, seeing every connection on the network, and creating a deep asset inventory. Steve just showed you some of the really automated and really cool things that the CyberSaint solution, CyberStrong, does to do all the gap analysis for the controls. But fundamentally, it relies on a very accurate inventory of all of the assets on the network in order for the CyberSaint solution to do its job correctly. And many, if not most, organizations do not have good and accurate asset inventories, and there's major gaps, and for some of them they don't have one at all. And so it's very important. You can't protect and you can't see things that you don't understand. And so I'm going to spend a few minutes just going through 3 or 4 slides, and then I'm going to hand it off to Craig, who's actually going to show you this. Our company is a private company. We're an emerging company focused on this this new problem where there's an explosion of new assets and devices across the enterprises. And these take the form of traditional IT devices like laptops and servers and virtual machines, which you might be used to. But there's also an explosion of mobile devices, IoT devices, cloud instances that have created a big problem for visibility. And so what we're attempting to do is to unify a lot of the discovery of all the devices on the network, including the new challenging ones. The vast majority of new devices entering the network are what we call unmanaged devices. These are devices, could be something as simple as a security camera. An example like your Ring doorbell, if you've got one on your front door, that's connected to the network, to the internet, and it is potentially a device that could be exploited. These are called IoT devices. The problem with IoT devices is that 75% or more of the growth of devices on the networks is going to come from these new innovative devices. But along with it comes a big security challenge, because these devices are not discoverable and they're not protected by the normal vulnerability solutions that have served us with traditional IT, like laptops and desktops. The world has changed a lot. With all these devices, it's tougher to manage them, and visibility or even understanding what's connected to the network is become a real challenge. There isn't a traditional perimeter anymore, as there used to be. We have devices in homes, devices in the cloud, devices connected to the traditional network. From an asset inventory standpoint, there's not really a single source of truth, if you will, for where do I go where I can see all of the devices in my network and know what they are. And the security policies have been very randomly assigned and not distributed evenly in a sense of securing all the devices on the network. Some devices have good security, some don't. Our company is focused in that area. We're a young emerging growth company with offices throughout the world. We are a privately held company. We have a lot of leadership that came from Cisco and Aruba. The reason I like to mention that is that in these areas of cybersecurity and asset inventory, integrations with companies' products like CyberSaint, sharing information across the different tools is very important. And we have deep roots in integrations and capabilities from our heritage of Cisco and Aruba in the networking space. At a very high level, we're focused on these three areas and solving these problems. You know, first, what's connected to my network? You need to know at all times, in order to protect yourself on the network, you need to know at all times what's connected and what those devices are doing, secondly, on your network. Some of these devices are transient. They may show up for a few hours and then disappear. We like to capture all of that in order to have good cybersecurity posture. Once we know what all the devices are on the network at a deep level and understanding and what they're doing and what they're communicating with on the network, then we focus on how do we secure these. And so compliance fundamentally starts with strong security, relying on understanding what you've got in your network to start with. And that's our role in this particular solution. So very simply, you know, how our solution works is that we have sensors that see all of the traffic, and we discover all of the devices on the network. We classify and profile them, make, model, serial number. We store those in a something we call a data lake, and sorry about that. And then from there, once we have all the devices profiled and understood, then we look at all of the behavior. We use artificial intelligence and machine learning to profile that behavior. We generate that behavior, and then the final step is focusing on the security, and that's where, you know, a handoff, if you will, to solutions like CyberSaint come into play. So in this particular slide, what you're seeing is that this is a level of detail, and Craig's going to go into this, but the whole point of our role in this combined solution is to discover all the assets at a very detailed level, understand all their behavior, help understand the risks, and then we take that information and we share that information across to the CyberSaint platform, who will then take all that asset inventory information and do its gap analysis, controls assessments, as you've seen. We are talking about CMMC and the general area of compliance today. We actually have many use cases for our technology. And again, with the explosion of these unmanaged IoT devices, medical devices, devices we call OT or operational technology devices, all of those devices are not discovered by traditional solutions that are already deployed in the IT infrastructure. And we're filling that gap and addressing that problem, but also gathering all this information on all the other devices. But we work very closely with vendors like Cisco, with Cisco NAC augmentation for their ICE solution, Aruba ClearPass, Forescout. They're in that network access control market. That's a strong use case for us. We've talked a bit about asset inventory and compliance. Areas, for example, in medical communities, there's device utilization, where if we can intelligently understand what devices like expensive MRI machines are used, then we can better help people for capital expenditure planning and for preventive maintenance, outage scheduling, do a better job using utilization data. And we fit very nicely in the same zero trust and solution that you've heard about applied to normal IT devices. We extend that capability predominantly through the use of segmenting and putting risky devices or non-compliant devices in their own VLANs or sections of the network where they're not a threat to others. And with that, I'm going to stop sharing right now, and I'm going to hand this over to Craig, who's going to give you a quick demo.
Thanks, Mike. Okay, so very excited here to show you the order solution. And just like a gelato stand, there's so many flavors that I would like you to try, but we're going to pick a couple of flavors here. And so hopefully you get a taste of what value order brings to essentially every organization. Typically, organizations will track devices based on their network management systems, that what they see is a bunch of MAC addresses or IP addresses connected out in the network, or NAC systems which are focused on authenticating devices. But when you really need to see everything, which is a foundation for all basically all regulations and guidance and security best practices, is to get a true understanding of what's connected to the network. Are they vulnerable? Are they at risk? So you can see from this very high-level dashboard that we're providing very good detail on what's online, what's offline, the items which are at risk. Every number, everything in this dashboard is clickable, so I can drill into any one of these. In this case, we've focused specifically on some medical devices, but same for industrial. We have the ability to drill into any type of system. So you can see just based on the groups and say, how many do I have in these major groupings? How many based on their categorization do I have? And based on a very detailed classification profile, the operating systems. And it's very common that you'll find this IoT and OT technology are running antiquated or deprecated operating systems, but those systems continue to live in the organizations for many years. You can see that we're collecting a lot of other good detail about everything on the system, even use of things like insecure protocols that do not use encrypted credentials that feed into your cybersecurity risk. Where are they located? How do they connect to the network? Wired, wireless, which Wi-Fi or which VLAN or which subnet? And then you can see that we're gathering a lot more detail across the board on these systems. So to give you a real understanding, and this is done passively without agents, and it's highly integrated. So we can integrate with multiple systems to create this vast data lake. So I'm going to start with facility devices because pretty much all organizations have facility devices. And I'm going to see that I can view the information at multiple levels in terms of the device name, group, what classification, its cyber risk, any vulnerabilities, and these hot links that allow me to quickly drill into detailed information about these systems. But you can see that we can also say, well, what do these things look like that are on my network? Oh, that's what we're talking about. And see, again, very granular detail. How are they connected? Where are they connected in my system? And you can see many different default views and how we're pulling in information from many different, say, ITSM, asset management, and other systems that like ServiceNow and ticketing, so that you have a consolidated view. And if you don't like the pre-built views, you can create your own. So you can take information from all the different sources and create your own views. Now, let's drill in a little bit. I'm going to go back to that initial view, and I'm going to focus on things at risk. And I can show you, for example, people are starting to connect IP-enabled light bulb, but you're seeing the detail, the make, manufacturer, the model, serial numbers, operating systems, versions. Is this a static or dynamic address? What's the classification? What's the category? What's the major grouping? What risk has been assigned to this device? And this is an aggregate of multiple security analytics, which I'll talk about in a moment. And where is this device located specifically in my environment? This is the kind of data that gets shared with the ITSM systems, that gets shared with your NAC system and firewalls, so that you can now have the visibility, not just IP addresses or MAC addresses, what's actually behind it, so that I can start providing very good sound decisions about what's at risk. Now we see something that's very high risk here, and I'm going to drill in. And here it is, a parking system. And again, granular detail, we're seeing it's running one of those old operating systems. I can track its known vulnerability. So now that I know what the device is, what operating system, I can now correlate it to industry feeds, such as the ICS CERT, manufacturing recalls, track its movement across the network. Are there users associated with this device? So we can pull in information from, say, Active Directory and say, oh, it's this particular user. Maybe I need to give them a call or notify them of an issue. What security incidents are related to this particular device? And I can see that I can drill in for those who are into the security world, and I can click and drill into what are the things I need to do to resolve that. But you can also see there are things such as there's a behavior violation. What's a behavior violation? Well, we're watching the communication. So even after the devices connect, even if they're given full access to the internal network, we can see and track as I walk down the staircase which things it's talking to, ports, protocols, applications, when and how much, and walk down the stairs and see very specific details. And all of these communications are risk rated. So I can see what's normal, what most of the devices are doing, what's unexpected or at high risk. And that's going to feed into what we call behavior anomaly and understanding, are my devices, not only are they at risk, are they vulnerable, are they engaged in threat activity, but are they behaving as they should? I won't go into the details again that we're talking about, when I talked about the gelato stand, and just kind of show you a sampling of the types of security things which are being correlated automatically across each devices. Recent things like Ripple 20, Blue Keep, Urgent 11, other industry manufacturing and industry feed information. Are they integrating with your existing vulnerability management systems to determine are there specific software vulnerabilities or other things that are known to be potential infections and vulnerabilities, as well as correlation of all communications to understand, are things engaged with malicious behavior? Return to that dashboard for a moment, and I'm going to drill in on industrial devices, since we're talking about the defense industrial base. And I can see that I have a specific device here, the Siemens control module. And I can, again, seeing this granular detail about the device. We're seeing known vulnerabilities. Here we're seeing some ICS cert. If I click on any of these are all hot link, pulls me right to the advisory, so I can see that detail. The security incidents, and then the flow communications. Now here's the case where I can say, it's great that I know that there's issues, and we're seeing that the ones that are of question are these are external communications. How, if I know that this blue, these communications here is what the devices should be doing, which is true of a lot of IoT and OT devices. They have very prescriptive patterns. How can I translate that into a language? And you see here's a flow table that says things which are blue are baseline. They're expected, but these things were not, and they're not part of our baseline. And translate it, we're a multilingual system, if you will, to be able to say, how do I then translate this into a language that I can apply to, say, my checkpoint or Fortinet or Palo Alto, Cisco firewall to my network access control system? What would that look like if I pushed it to that system? You can copy and paste it, but we provide automation controls so that you can just click a button and it will automate to create that segmentation for you. Now, I've only got about another minute here, so I want to kind of talk about how this translates into the real world. Because while I can do that for a single device, your administrators and systems are usually done at a group level. And you can see all these different types of things. And if I just look at these security cameras, while we can create segmentation policies around specific cameras and devices, that's usually too granular. And it's not true that I can create one big bulk policy usually around all cameras, because some might be monitoring a parking garage, some are visiting rooms, some might be focused on the manufacturing plant floor. So what we've done is we've instituted this thing called something called policy profiles that allow you to group all the devices into something that's business relevant and meaningful. So here I have the Texas data center facility power. Now, it's not just throwing devices into a bucket. It's actually then saying, what's the behavior for these specific devices, so I can wrap policies. Tell my firewall that these group of devices should be monitored, so they don't have to know about where they're located, but we'll tell that firewall group, these are a specific group that you can apply policy or provide segmentation, or even give them that actually generate that segmentation policy. Same thing with things like this industrial, my Siemens manufacturing at substation 5 zone, that is automatically available so that I can create and then generate policy specific to that system. Beyond just providing this awareness of what's connected, is it vulnerable, what's the risk, and feeding that to other systems, and then giving actionable controls, we're giving the power to say, how do I view these things at a higher level to say, let me look at all my, say, physical security devices. What do they communicate with in other groups, such as maybe it's data storage or facility, workstations and servers, industrial devices, and be able to understand what they communicate, who are the members, so I can see what all the types of different devices and how many are in this group. I can see which VLAN and subnet they are, but also see how they communicate with things, say, in my data center or things outside my organization. So there's, the federal government has rules that say, certain devices shouldn't be purchased from certain countries, or they should not be able to talk to certain countries. So here's a case where I can see I have a number of access cameras, and some of these might be not, since I actually know what type of cameras they are, I can understand, do I have any that are in this list that I should not be using? But also understand, are they engaged in communications outside my environment, and break that down if I needed to analyze it. In the case of industrial devices, I'll take this as an example. We have industrial workstations. They're talking to servers. That's expected, but it turns out my industrial devices are actually talking to things outside my organization. And I can very quickly see, well, which prohibited countries are these things talking to, and get that, again, that quick visibility to understand, oh, I have these devices or this device that's talking to these many different sites, and be able to respond. And the way I'm going to wrap that up is just, a lot of segmentation is done based on VLANs. And we can see that we have one of our devices in this VLAN that, why is this one device? And that if I used maybe user-friendly names, this could be one that someone says, nothing should be in that VLAN, at least not these industrial devices. And then just quickly drill in and say, how do I then say, take this device and add it to a block list or change its VLAN? Again, it's fully automated. And so hopefully that was your gelato samples that gives you a sense of some of the power that's available in the tool. And I'll turn it back to Rick.
Great, thank you, Craig. And I know Rick will join in, and we're just at the top of the hour right now. So Rick, you're gonna have to talk fast, and we may only get to one question maybe. Rick, you're on mute.
There we
There you
go.
go.
I'm back. Okay, mine will be real quick. This slide here really sums up the discussion today. Step one is to get you trained so you know exactly what to do and how to do it using the 800-171 Fast Track certification training program. That ties together with the order platform to discover your assets and then factor those assets into your risk mitigation plan, your risk analysis plan. Obviously, same with CyberSaint. And then basically you're at a point now where you're ready for CMMC certification. You can engage your assessor, become certified, and continue to do business with the Defense Department. Today we providing all attendees free access to the NIST Cybersecurity Professional Awareness Training Program. It's a video training program. You can gain access to that program by visiting itsmwebsolutions.com and use the coupon code CMMC free. The course itself will introduce you to the basic concepts of digital transformation, cybersecurity risk management, and then this framework. And then the course also allows you to qualify for continuing education credits with PMI, CompTIA, or any other professional organization that you belong to. So I will turn it back over to Julie for questions.
Okay, I think, thank you so much, all of you, and I hope this was informative for our attendees. So the question that we did receive from Rocky was, has NIST endorsed this solution? And I think that should be directed to Rick. And Rick, I think we'll let you answer that, and then we're going to wrap up.
Sure, no, absolutely. Yeah, NIST actually doesn't endorse or can't endorse anything. What they can do is they can actually make people aware that these solutions exist, and then give people the ability to assess and take advantage of these solutions themselves. But they can't formally endorse anything. All they can do is make people aware, like they've done with our training on the Department of Homeland Security's NICS database, which is all linked back to NIST as well.
Also, did you want to talk about the marketplace? About the CMMC COE endorses our solution on the marketplace?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. The CMMC Center of Excellence is put together a marketplace of technologies and services that will help the DIB, get ready for the CMMC certification. Both Order, CyberSaint, and ITSM are partners with the COE. We have to go through a pretty extensive vetting process for them to recognize our programs and solutions as part of what they're doing for the DIB. So you can go visit them at cmmc-coe.org, and you'll see their marketplace and the listings they have, including our 3 programs.
All right, well, thank you. I'm sorry we went a couple minutes over, but I hope this was informative. We will be following up, and we'll make sure that you get a copy of the presentation today and a recording. And of course, we are always available to answer questions and to help you with this. So thank you to our guests, sitting with Mike, Steve, Rick, and anyway, and all of you for joining. So thank you.
Thank you. Thanks, everybody.
Mhm.